Welcome, everyone. I'm Dick Deming, Medical Director of Mercy Cancer Center and the founder of Above and Beyond Cancer. Welcome to our weekly cancer education series. It's brought to you, in part, by a grant from the Iowa Oncology Society. Our topic this evening is cancer screening, and we have guests from Cancer Screen Iowa. We're going to learn all about that. Mike Schreers and Justin Miller. Welcome, Mike and Justin.
Hey,
Thanks
it's
for
good to
having
be
us.
here. Thanks, Dick.
It's great to have you here. So we're going to talk about cancer screening. We're going to talk about Cancer Screen Iowa. But before we do, we're going to get to know you each a little bit better. So Mike, we'll start with you. Where did you grow up and where did you go to high school?
Well, I grew up in Iowa. I'm a native Iowan. Never really got outside the state.
Okay.
Had an opportunity to work at some other places, but I'll tell you what, in hindsight, I have no regrets about being a native-born Iowan. And I grew up in, I was born in Muscatine, grew up in a town called Keota, which is just in the shadows of Iowa City, which
Okay.
makes
it
me
on
black
the
and
river?
gold.
Is it on the river?
No, it's
No.
not.
Okay.
But I
And
grew up
did-
in Keota and then went to school at UNI,
Okay, but high school. What town did you go to high school in?
Keota.
In Keota.
Keota High
So
School.
how many in your graduating class?
34.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Okay, so-
I was elected the class president. I think mainly because I might have been the class clown as
Okay.
well.
And so do you have to, one of the jobs of the senior class president is to put on the reunion.
Yeah.
So-
You're right.
So
I wish I had known
you
that.
probably already had your 50.
I did.
Maybe had your 55.
I actually probably had my 60th.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't make it.
Okay.
I was cutting down a tree and it fell the wrong way, broke my hip.
Okay.
And, well, you know.
Well, there are other people that didn't make it, but they, and they're not going to make the next one.
Yeah,
but-
I'm afraid that's true.
Okay, but you do have to put that on. That's one of the jobs.
I didn't know that at the
Okay.
time. All I thought I had to do was kind of give a commencement address and survive that.
And besides being senior class president, what was your other claim to fame in high school?
Oh, Dick, you didn't tell me that.
Well, I don't know. You could probably say whatever you
Claim
want.
to fame,
like
huh?
like homecoming king, quarterback,
Well,
valedictorian,
first of all,
got
Keota's-
kicked out for smoking in the boys' room. I mean, you got some other claim to fame, I bet.
Well, in small towns, people are not known for their real name. They're known for their nickname.
Okay.
So my name is Schreers. It's slaughtered in terms of pronunciation,
Yes.
spelling, and
even
everything.
if you know how to say it, sometimes it
It
doesn't
just
come out right.
It doesn't even come out right for me. But my dad had the same problem, and his nickname was Scissors so I became Sizz.
Okay.
And it's amazing how those nicknames tend to
Yeah.
every once in a while just follow you.
I like
and it's
that.
like, oh
Sizz.
goodness gracious.
And then says you went to UNI. What
Went
did
to
what
UNI.
did you major in?
I actually went to study history, and about a year and a half into that, I discovered that maybe this isn't the right choice for me, so I switched to business and marketing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are the founder and just recently stepped down as CEO of Strategic America. Tell us about Strategic
Yeah,
America.
Well, but there was a little gap in there. I started another company called Carnaby Square Teleproductions, which did Today shows around the country, the Iowa Television Network back when Lute was coach at the University of Iowa, commercials all over the place from the East Coast really up to about Colorado. And then after 7 years, I started Strategic America, and that was because clients essentially said, why are you doing this for somebody else? Why don't you do it for yourself? And they were willing to follow me, so that was a good sign.
In Strategic America, you would call it a marketing and public relations company? Is that what you would call it?
It's an integrated marketing services firm, close enough.
Okay.
Today, it's everything from How do you deal with data? How do you deal with technology? How do you deal with AI and media and creative and all of that?
But in your office, I saw like some Oscars or Emmys or,
Yeah.
statuettes of,
Yep.
those come from making
Commercials.
commercials.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or videos. Mhm.
Okay.
You bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what TV commercial that got nationwide play are you most proud of that we might have seen?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because I still have many clients who are going to say it was ours, right?
Oh, yes. So,
But and we've worked for the Iowa Lottery for 40 some years.
Okay.
So there's a lot of commercials for the lottery. Lennox has been a client of ours for 45, almost 46 years. So we've been really blessed in terms of long-term client relationships, and none really stands out.
okay. Have you made any beer commercials?
I haven't.
Okay.
No.
Okay, maybe you.
Heart Association.
I did do a wine.
Oh, okay.
A wine craft commercial, wine art.
Okay.
And in fact, I used my wife as the spokesperson, as the talent. Some people assumed that maybe there was an ulterior motive there. But she was a very pretty girl.
Well,
and,
thank you. We're going to come back to that because she's
Okay.
going to fit into the story
yes,
tonight.
she is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Justin, where did you grow up, or where did you go to high school?
I grew up in Tampa, Florida. Actually.
wow.
Yeah, surprise. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not know
I
that.
grew up in Tampa. My family is originally, I grew up down there until I was about 14 or 15 years old. And then my family moved to, and I would say back to Iowa, because my mom was originally from the Kelowna, Iowa area, not too far from Keota. Keota and Kelowna are what,
And is
15, 20
Kelowna
miles apart.
one of the
yeah.
Amana?
No,
but
it's south of Iowa City,
Oh, okay.
but it is Amish
Okay.
and Mennonite. And so when my mom was 6 years old, her family moved to Florida. So they lived down there that entire time. And she grew up in Florida. The interesting thing is my grandmother used to be Amish, and my grandfather was the milkman. And they met when he was picking up milk from their Amish family farm, got married. She left the Amish church, and then they had a little business in Kelowna, and then decided to move to Florida. So my family then eventually decided to move back, and that's when I moved back to Kelowna. And so Kelowna and Keota are kind of similar in size and similar in an area. And I went to a high school there for a year or two, and then I finished at home. I was homeschooled by my mother. So
Okay.
I was valedictorian,
Class president.
class president. I have
Most
reunions
likely
every
to
year.
succeed.
Everything went well because I was the only person in my class.
Okay. Did you get to do extracurricular activities with the public school?
We did have the ability to go
Okay.
out and do that. I thought you were going to say, like, yes, my mom made me like cook dinner and wash dishes, and homemaking was built into what we did. But that actually, I kind of joke about it, but my brother and sister were also homeschooled, and I think that set us up. My mom is an amazing person and an excellent teacher, and she did a lot of things in homeschooling that prepared me for life, and personal traits and other things that you don't have in school, from finances to everything else, things that I really feel like
Kind
high
of
school's
hard
missed
to
today.
bamboozle the teacher.
It is. It is. She knows. She knows what happened to your homework, right?
Yeah.
It's
So where did you go to college?
college. My wife and I met actually in Iowa City, so I was going to school there. I had a couple of different. At the time, I wanted to get into the internet, and so in early 90s, the internet was pretty small. I was joking around, but Al Gore was just
Right,
inventing it, right?
yes,
In the early, and so you had to go to technical schools, and they had a couple of classes, but I went around to several different classes, and then I was looking at pre-law, so I thought I would legal and internet and tie all that together. But ended up getting kind of recruited away and taking some classes, remote classes at that time, and became an internet administrator early on in my career. And so that's how I got started in technology, early 90s with dial-up internet. Remember modems
Yes,
with the,
yes, of course,
all of the screaming modems?
Yeah.
I used to run that for a service out of Kelowna, actually.
And then you have started a company that is a software company, or how would you describe it?
So-
Shift, is that correct?
Shift Interactive. I didn't start Shift Interactive actually, but I own Shift Interactive. So
Okay.
Shift has been around 15 years.
Okay.
It's in the Des Moines area, and actually was kind of born out of a advertising company where they needed someone to develop websites back about 15 years ago, right?
Okay.
So that was, high technology back in the day was websites. And I came into play 2001 in that, and I started working at the company and then ended up buying it out in 2022 and then own 100% of that company
Okay.
today. So Shift Interactive is now it's a software development. We really don't do a whole lot in the website world. We help companies integrate software. We work a lot with AI, and so a lot of people look at AI and think, hey, this is where the world is going. They ask us, can you come in and assist us in our organizations, and so we don't fall behind. We help set up, a lot of different things inside companies from a technology
Gotcha.
perspective.
And we're going to come back to, website development, software development, because that's part of the story here. But let's go back to you.
There's one person that's missing too. That's
Yes.
really important to this. Can I give
Yes,
a third
please
person
do.
endorsement and description of
Yes.
Joe Garcia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe. Joe's watching.
Yes.
Joe and I have known each other probably for 30 years, dating back. He started, first of all, he was an ISU grad, and I'll tell you what, he's just one of the more intelligent people I've ever run across. Period. And I'm not saying that for any kind of. He is very sharp, strategic in the way he approaches things. And Joe and Jen met at ISU, where he graduated, and then I think out of Iowa State, Joe went to work at Meredith. We met at Preferred Risk, where he was involved for a time. Then I believe he went to Marsh McLennan, and he ended up being managing director there. After that, and in his current position, he's the chief strategy officer for Aflac nationally. So
Yes.
I know that's probably the short and simple description, but Joe's one of the great guys in
Yes.
our community.
Absolutely, and one of the founders of Cancer Screen Iowa.
Yeah.
And Joe's wife, Jennifer, was a
Yes.
patient of mine.
Yeah.
And that's part of the story as well.
Yes, it is.
So we'll come back to that, but let's talk about the woman who you talked into starring in your wine commercial.
Oh, I know
Her
everything.
name
You're
is-
smiling
her
like
name is
you don't
Linda.
understand my motivation.
Yes.
Yes.
So tell us about Linda and why Linda is part of this story of Cancer Screen Iowa.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, actually, she may have been one of the first rock and roll disc jockeys in Iowa. I know she was. And when we met, she was in television, and I used her as talent for a commercial called Wine Arts, wine craft, make your own wine type of thing. It was in the early days of my career. But, and Linda and I were married for 46 and a half years, but she was eventually diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And as you know, Dick, that's not one of the good cancers to be diagnosed for. But it was kind of amazing in that from the onset of symptoms to being able to receive the Whipple surgery, it was a total of 5.25 years of her survival. And that's pretty amazing for that, because very oftentimes people succumb to that disease in a matter of weeks or months, as we discovered with Donna Tweeten. And Joe's wife, Jen, was substantially less than that. But when I heard that Jen had contracted this terrible disease, I called Joe and I said, I don't know what I can do for you, but I'm with you, and we're going to stand together. And that kind of started things off.
Right. And as it turned out, both Linda and Jennifer died of pancreas cancer.
Yes, that's right.
And you mentioned another name, Donna Tweeten, who was executive at Hy-Vee, and is also part of developing Cancer Screen Iowa, and just unbelievably was diagnosed with pancreas cancer
Yeah.
just as this organization was getting going,
Yeah.
and actually died before she could even get her first treatment.
Yeah.
So we've got these three women, Linda, Jen, and Donna, all having died of pancreas cancer.
So we've got a
And-
purpose and a mission.
Got a purpose, yeah.
Mhm. It's very
Ironically, right now there's not even a approved screening test for pancreas cancer.
personal. I know.
But as we continue to look at newer technologies, we may have one sooner.
I saw something even today that
yeah.
picked up some kind, it's because of that KRAS protein that they've identified as being I'm not sure what the word is. You can't attach something to it to
Yeah, that's important in therapy, but we also have the ability to detect circulating tumor DNA in a blood test.
Yeah.
And that may prove to be a screening test for
Well,
pancreas
why am I
cancer.
trying to describe this? I'm sitting next to the man who knows it better than anybody.
But your passion and Joe's passion, and then Justin, so we know exactly why Mike and Joe are very interested into this, in this. And I think your interest came because you're a next door neighbor to Joe and you have some technical abilities that has become very critical for Cancer Screen Iowa. Maybe talk about your relationship
Sure.
to Cancer Screen Iowa.
You bet. Early on, so I met Joe a number of years ago at my brother-in-law's wedding. And Joe's a pretty decent dancer. And he
I didn't know that.
He was out there. He was really cutting a rug. And we just had a good time at this wedding that we were all together. And then it ended up that we would see each other occasionally around the area. And then he moved kind of down the street from me. And so we're both out walking dogs, on the weekends and in the mornings. And occasionally we just, see each other and wave. And he knew I'm involved in technology and a lot of that. And so he would ask me some technical questions and we would continue to work on that. And then one day he said, hey, you know what? You're familiar with, my story. You're familiar with some of the things that are going on. And, Mike, because I had met Mike and actually had been a client of SA a number of years ago. And knew some things that were, obviously going on in both of their lives. And he said, I have a passion project that Mike and I are working on. It's barely kind of just started. We're scratching the surface, and why don't you come over? And I went over to his house, and he had those huge Post-its. There were probably, 18 of these huge Post-its on the wall. And he's like, we have a presentation to give to Kim Reynolds tomorrow. And what can you do to, get this kicked off? And then we need a platform develop around it. So we sat in his kitchen that night with him and JT, and
And that's Joe's son.
Joe's son, who also is involved. And from then, I was just, this is, everyone's life is touched by cancer. My father-in-law has had cancer multiple times. I told you just recently he had his kidney removed due to cancer. So, each and every one of us, close friends, family members, and living in the state of Iowa, it's more true now than ever. So with that, this seemed like an amazing project to be a part of. And so as we continued to kind of work on a few things, then we talked about how a platform should come into play and how that platform should help people. And,
Okay.
that's how I got involved. And from the beginning, obviously Joe and Mike's amazing idea, and then, helping kind of, in my opinion, the platforms out there to raise awareness and lower the threshold so that people can easily more understand what screening
And we're
applies to
gonna
them.
come back to the
Okay.
platform. So the story now is Iowa has the second highest cancer rate. Joe also, as part of AFLAC, is aware of a project that was going on in Chicago that AFLAC was helping to fund, and that was to elevate screening for cancer in some of the underserved neighborhoods of Chicago. So the strategy in Chicago, partially funded by AFLAC, was a bit different, but it included vans that would go out into the neighborhood to do mammograms and PSA, prostate cancer screening in underserved neighborhoods. And as Joe became aware of that program funded by his company, and how it was successful in increasing cancer screening, he thought, well, geez, Iowa has the second highest cancer rate in the country. We probably, correct me, but we have fewer people in Iowa than live in all of Chicago. Maybe we could take something that we're learning in Chicago and bring it to Iowa and enhance screening and save lives in Iowa.
Yeah.
Since he's an Iowan and you're an Iowan, and obviously the shared experience of losing your wife to cancer is part of the motivation.
Right.
So,
And it's everybody has a cancer story. I don't think any family is immune to that, and because of that, it's something that not just touches lives, but it's like there's an emotional burden with this, and the emotional burden goes far beyond cost and everything else, all of the other damage that cancer does. And we're reading about it, we're hearing about it, we're experiencing it. Iowa's high incidence, fastest growing, all of that. Whether it's due to environmental issues or genetic issues or behavioral issues or whatever, there is one thing that actually can be done on a practical basis, and that is to get people screened for cancer and catch it before it becomes a pain point. Catch it at stage 1 or even perhaps before stage 1 or stage 2, when the treatment options are much greater, when the opportunity for survival is substantially greater, and where the cost is substantially less. And when we spread it across the 5 screenable cancers of cervical, colorectal, prostate, breast, and lung cancer, that represents about 50% of all cancers in the state. If we can make a difference here just by getting people screened, and screening is already, for the most part, paid for by private insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, if we can do that, we know we can save lives. And just last week, we had a meeting with, was it last week or the week before, with the governor, and she's trying to figure out how do we take care of that 5% of the Iowa population that is uninsured, that needs to be covered as well. So that's where we're at. It's exciting. It's very fulfilling. I thought I had started into the retirement stage of life, and now I feel like I'm a kid again.
yeah, energizing. And just back to the passion, I mean, part of this is we know that Linda and Jennifer and Donna, I mean, their lives matter, and even after their death, they can inspire and, in fact, demand of us that we do something to make a difference. And that's what this is all about. Obviously, Joe has a real job. You had a real job. I think you're still involved.
Dick, I got to tell you, one of the things at one of the Purple Stride events, I'm walking away feeling, I don't know, nostalgic, whatever. And this guy comes up beside me and puts his arm around me, and he said, "Linda would be so proud."
Yeah.
And of course, that was Dr. Deming.
So tell me, and we'll stay with you for a bit, Mike, because then we want to bring Justin in to talk about this platform that he built and how that's going to help increase the screening rate. So the real goal of Cancer Screen Iowa, obviously to save lives, but by increasing the number of Iowans that get their screening.
Sure.
And the primary way of doing it isn't to go out there with a van like they did in Chicago. Maybe talk about the strategy for how Cancer Screen Iowa, a 501c3 not-for-profit,
Yeah.
is going to help enhance the screening of cancer in Iowa.
It is very strategic. It's based on one thing. First of all, we all have an X date. It's the day we were born. The day we were born links us to specific dates that the government, through the United States Preventative Services Task Force, recommends that we be screened. So that birthday function is also something that we borrowed from Cook County. But it's an important one because now it's personalized. Most people don't know what the screening date is for prostate or breast cancer or cervical cancer or whatever. So the birth date gives us an opportunity to communicate something very specific. Second thing that's strategic is that we're using trusted voices. Trusted voices are the healthcare professionals like yourself, like the primary care physicians, like the people that we look to and say, yeah, something doesn't feel right, and we go in and ask for answers. So healthcare professionals. But the other thing that we're doing is working with the employers, the HR professionals who, when somebody has a birthday, they may send out a note from the CEO or from whomever at the senior level of a company and say, happy birthday. Well, we want to turn that happy birthday not just from how many birthdays you've already been blessed to experience, but how many more can you experience if you just take care of this simple aspect of screening? And with that, the coalition that we're building, the partnership that we're building, is with government, it's with companies, it's with churches and houses of worship. There's another trusted voice. It's with the healthcare communities. So this partnership is essentially locking arms in Iowa to solve what has been called a healthcare crisis.
And with your background as a, Emmy award-winning maker of commercials, I would imagine media plays a role in this enhancing and improving the screening rate.
Yes, and certainly. One of the things also with media is that we're looking at the use of influencers. Influencers are people that might be nationally known or they might be locally known, but they have some ability to influence action. They're a trusted voice. So we're going to be using that. We'll be making some announcements about that too. This is a strategy that's designed to engage Iowans at an early stage when the options are much more positive, the cost is substantially less, the survival rate is substantially greater, and the opportunity to really make a difference and save lives is something that we can achieve.
Yep. So, Justin, back to you. Tell us a bit about your platform. And is that the preferred term for what you've created? What do you like to call it?
Well, that's a great term because if we just call it an app, then you think it's only for a phone. If we call it a website, then you think, well, what can it do? And what happened behind the scenes is, there's a lot of conversation on what this can be in the future. And so what started off is think of it just as an engine. So the platform is an engine that can serve up content in multiple ways. Today, it's serving up website information as you kind of go out to the website. We will be turning up at some point here in the future the app version of that, so you can go on your phone and download an app in the App Store, a tablet device. And the goal has always been to make sure that, someone of any age, if grandma is sitting at home and she has a 5-year-old cell phone that doesn't have, it's not the fastest or the latest, that she would be able to download that and access this. It's not made to be, the very difficult to navigate. We have multilingual already in play, and we'll be turning that on at some point here in the near future. And so there's a number of pieces of this, but again, we did this, and we wanted to make sure that we're taking those USPSTF guidelines that we've talked about and some information from the American Cancer Society. And that information is amazing. But we want to make sure that Iowans, and anyone else actually, have the ability to go in, put in their birthday, answer a couple of very simple questions. It does not ask you, for all 15 questions or anything. It's something you can very simply do with just your mouse or click with your finger on a tablet or on your cell phone today. You can access the website. And once you put in that information, it shows you what the guidelines are for your age. It also shows you what other guidelines might be for someone of the opposite sex at the bottom. So here's your guidelines, but looking at that, if I'm looking at it and my wife's of similar age, I'd be like, well, here are her guidelines as well. It shows both of those. We have links inside of that to the USPSTF guidelines where you can review those. We also show what you should expect. And a part of this platform is to improve education. For us, when we're looking at, why people don't get screened, part of it is, cost. And so to help understand the cost and what might be available through insurance, the other part might be, I'm afraid of what may happen or how should I show up? What should I expect once I'm there? We answer those questions to say, here are options for you. This is what you should bring. This is how long it should take. And we're pulling that information to help people go prepared. And if not to the screening themselves, to their primary care practitioner, so they can ask. They could look at the guidelines and they can say, hey, I should be getting screened for this and I haven't been. Why don't we talk about it today?
So, Justin, while we're talking, why didn't you give us the website? And people might want, while we're actually having this conversation, may go to that website. What's the website?
I thought you'd never ask. CancerScreenIowa.org or .com. Either one works. CancerScreenIowa.com. You can put that in. It will take you to the website. And again, it's free.
Yep.
It has no cost. You can sign up. We've had a couple hundred people already sign up on there.
So I've been to the website,
Yes.
and you're right that one of the things it does is lots of good information, so you can be educated and informed. And you already gave a hint of the answer to my next question. So besides going on and getting informed and educated, what are some of the interactive? You already described one, that you answer a few basic questions about your age, your gender, your
Smoking.
your history, like smoking,
Yes.
and then it gives you what the recommended screening. What are some of the other interactive functions that it can provide individuals with?
One of the things that we really like is the ability to invite others. So you have the ability to invite someone else. I could invite anyone else. I could take your email address and invite you. The other part is what we have as a family circle. And the family circle part of this is where you can invite someone in your family or a close member of your family, and you can share information with them. And so if I invite my father to join, he can choose to share what information, and it would say he has completed one of 3 tests, right, that would be available. And I could likewise share my information. So I could nudge him and say, hey, I'm looking on here. You signed up 6 months ago and you've only completed one of the 3 tests available to you. I care about you. Why don't you go out and get the other 2 screenings that you need? And so you have the family care circle. You have, a couple of other pieces available to you. And then, of course, the feedback from your birthday. So it will email you and then do some quarterly reminders. It's not going to email you every week. It's not going to, pester you to death. What it's going to do is say, hey, it's your birthday. According to the guidelines, here are the screenings that you're now, and you can go out to the website, see what those are, and then put in when your screenings are scheduled. It can help you keep track of those. You can see, that information. So.
Okay. So, Mike, back to media. What do you foresee in terms of media? Like, I'm thinking of public service announcements. What, in this day and age, probably just doing a public service announcement on a TV network is probably pretty old-fashioned, probably still works.
Still
But
works to a degree.
What are the different media tools that will be
Sure.
employed by Cancer Screen Iowa?
Well, we're going to take this whole partnership idea as far as we can. And the television and radio stations in the state of Iowa have a program by which we can utilize PS time
Public service.
Public service time for television or radio.
Are they required by law to have a certain a number of hours of public service?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They used to be anyway, and I don't track it as much as I used to, but that's available and that will be available. The only issue, of course, is that as we launch this, we're in a fairly demanding time of campaigns and inventory pressure, actually, by the station. So
There's lots of candidates buying up advertising time.
they are buying
and
time.
that causes the cost of
And
go
and
up,
so
or-
doing it directly, buying time directly doesn't make sense because the rates are going to go very high. But the other important part of this is that a good share of them are going to be talking about our issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the opportunity to stand out, and we intend to do that. And we've also negotiated some things related to the use of connected TV, which is essentially digital TV, pre-roll, outdoor, just a number of newspaper, all of which are kind of the old media, but we're going to get coverage for sure. And then with what Justin has done in terms of the app, the web platform, is going to personalize, and personalization is so critical today, so that people understand. Yeah, I have heard about that message. It's legit. It's something we need to understand. The whole goal of this is to normalize the fact that screening is something that Iowa does. Period.
Mhm.
If we can do that, we're going to save lives.
Yes, absolutely. And Justin, anything more about what you think your platform in a year or two, what are things that you think it could be capable of doing with some additional software engineering?
Sure, that's a great question. We're a 501c3, so as you mentioned before, what we like to do, and as we're accepting kind of donations for this or corporate contributions, the reason being is organizations, businesses small can sign up, but large organizations as well, those who have self-funded insurance, benefit greatly from seeing their employees screened at, as Mike so eloquently put before, at stage 1 versus stage 4. And because of that, we want to see this get out to all of large and small. And so we would like to partner with some of those companies if they have large systems that we can integrate with. They have called APIs so that we can pull the information so that they don't have to load that data in individually. We could just connect up with their Workday system and it would pull that in. This could be used to reach their employees in their company. And through that, if we can partner with associations out there as well, just think of all the people we can reach by the business associations, the houses of worship that we've been working out. Mm-hmm. Again, back to Mike's message of trusted voices. Some of that exists today. Some of those are future features that we have, kind of on the roadmap, and we've been slowly starting to build some of those out. The goal was to get the platform launched, but then to, have those partnerships with major organizations across the state and get this out to the individuals. And we know that will save lives. And then you look at the impact of each and every one of those people, not only in their personal homes, but, inside of a business. When you think as a business owner, what happens if someone, has to go out for treatment? What happens for retraining? What happens with, in those situations where we know that stage 1, high 90s for most of the cancers that we're screening, is the, ability for us to find those and treat them early.
Right.
Where the mortality rate drops, is way down there depending on stage.
So I think you're referring to that the cure rate is in the
Yes,
90%
cure
if
rate.
you find an early cancer, and it drops down to probably less than 15% in many of the cancers that are stage 4. If you are watching us right now live, I invite you to call in with questions, and same with the live studio audience, and maybe we're interested in hearing what are some of the barriers that you personally may have experienced in screening, and or some of your ideas about how we can promote screening. I'm also interested if you, as individuals who have had cancer, kind of take it upon yourself to help influence the networks that you're part of. So that'll be a question that'll come up.
And if I might just interject, one of the things that we hear often is there's a lot of organizations like Above and Beyond Cancer, the American Cancer Society, Polk County, and the various individual county organizations. The cancer ecosystem in the state of Iowa is rich with data. It is incredibly valuable. And it's the kind of thing that actually supports what we're trying to do. But what we bring to the table is the outreach, the engagement, the conversion to the place where people hopefully will act on the information that is now available.
Excellent.
Personalization, as you mentioned before, that personalization piece so that you know exactly how it applies to you. It's not just a kind of a guideline out there that, but once you put in your birthday
Right.
and you can see how the goal is to get them to their primary care practitioner, and in my mind, that opens up a number of other doors. Once you're at your, primary care practitioner, what do? They start, what's your heart rate? What's your blood pressure? They ask you all kinds of questions. There are other things that will kind of come into play. Everything from, mental, how are you feeling, to around, your body and health. And so we believe that this doesn't just impact cancer. We believe that this impacts people, on multiple levels, and it's our goal to get them to the right and get them to the right doctor and right person to help them.
Great. Let's open up to questions. So if you are watching us live streaming, you can put your question in the comment section of the software you're using, but we'll let our live studio audience get first question.
My question or observation would be that screening is great. It's linked to, and there's a lot of talk about cancer. Cancer is not much fun, but living is fun. Life is fun. Screening enables you to go ahead and continue doing what you like. It could be bouncing kids on your knee, or it could be jumping out of an airplane. Do you gentlemen agree with that, and is that part of the message as well? Get screened and enjoy life.
Let me answer that. One of the things that is missing in Iowa's current discussion of cancer is that the issue of hope is not being properly addressed. When people know what the options are and what they can practically do with those options in a current sense, then we're re-injecting into the narrative, into the story, a whole sense of hope. And that is so critically important, and right now it's kind of missing. And we intend to change that kind of dread of the word cancer to let's act on it, and let's reintroduce the importance of hope into the discussion as well.
Excellent.
And that is our message too. It's give yourself the gift of more birthdays, just like you're talking about, right? And that's one of the little taglines that we use. And so, go get screened, give yourself the gift of more birthdays. And we'd like to, the other groups that are out there today, Above and Beyond Cancer, as we mentioned, they're out doing amazing things. And so to get people connected, once to add on to what Mike's saying, is it's now, okay, you were screened, now what? That's also one of the future parts of the site, to help. Maybe there's patient navigators that we can help connect them with. There are other organizations that we'd like to see. And so it isn't, from our side was not just, let's tell people to get screened and they have cancer and it's like, good luck. This is a platform that we see growing and continue to grow to help people and to give that hope that you both talked about.
Excellent. Next question. Angelina.
Hi. Yes, I just went through a mammogram yesterday and some more ultrasound. I'm good. I'm still cancer-free, but there was a lot of women there, and it was interesting. Our discussion was about that, about screening. And I think one of the first campaigns we were hearing out there, we need to hear more of it, is networks getting involved and saying, like, hey, it's the 13th of the month for the channel, 13, and other channels are doing the same. Do a buddy check, meaning do self-examination. But then when talking to these ladies, I said, yeah, I've got some friends I'm doing that too. But it's getting them to the screening part. It's that fear of, oh no, I don't want to go for a mammogram, it hurts. Yeah, it's a temporary hurt, but it's a lot of relief to know where you're at, and especially if there's history of cancer
Right.
in there. So that's a good thing to promote, that and the screening. And I think people need to be more informed about what mammograms are about, and what's involved in the screening. And I think you started adding in about the navigators and getting more to express more what people are needing to hear. Do you think more of that's going to start coming around more often in
Well, I think
advertising?
it's a communications issue,
Yeah.
so we need to understand what are those kind of barriers or obstacles. And I think one of the obstacles is, okay, I understand it's good. I understand that I need to do it. How long is it going to take me to schedule this? When I schedule it, do I have to take a full day off? Do I have to take a half day off? What are those things that people are concerned about? And we can help address that. And frankly, it's not just us. It's the entire ecosystem here that is going to jump in and educate. And like I said, if we're successful, this will become normal activity. You got a birthday, somebody's going to say, well, Dad, do you fall into the guidelines for cancer screening? Or have you checked on this? Have you done any of your own due diligence here? And what questions do you have? So the idea is to make this normal.
And that's a great comment. Check out the platform. There's a couple of different ways why this matters to you. So in each screening, it talks about why it's important, and then it talks about what to expect. So there's a couple little drop downs on there, and then it will also show you what to bring or what to look at. So welcome to, love your comment. I think that that's great. And any other ways or suggestions that you have, would love to hear those on how to get people more engaged.
And we have another question.
Earlier, there was some mention of AI. How does that come into play with everything that you're talking about?
Sure.
How does that interface?
What we're looking at from an AI perspective is on the site itself right now, there isn't, use of AI. This is, it was just the business that we're in. So that's one of the things that we do. But AI itself will help from a navigation. One of the things we're looking at is the ability for someone to go on and ask questions. And so have a support agent that would be able to help you with strictly the U.S., not personal information, not, it's not making medical recommendations. You can't ask, like, what should I do here? But what it will do is say, if you have questions around what to expect or what are the USPSTF guidelines for my friend Sam, or, when you can ask those types of information, we will have, something available. We already have it in the works. We have a couple areas where we're testing, but it will help provide, data from the guidelines, from the government, from the American Cancer Society, recommendations to that.
And Poon, you have the next question.
Can you just remind us of the 5 screening?
Yes.
The 5 cancers for which there are validated screening.
Yes.
Mike, do you want to go with that?
Yeah.
You've already named them, but
Well,
name
I
them
have.
again,
Yeah.
so I know you.
First of all, it's cervical, which starts at age 21 for women, and I think probably goes up to around 65 or so.
Yeah, so there's different circumstances, and let's just name the 5 to
Okay,
start
that's,
with.
thank you,
Yes,
take me
yes,
off.
just the 5 cancers for which there are screening, and then
Cervical.
they can go to cancerscreeniowa.com, and they'll get all of the
recommendations.
the
He should've-
fine print.
He should have been in marketing.
So the 5 cancers are, number 1, cervix cancer,
Cervical, breast cancer,
breast cancer,
prostate cancer,
prostate cancer,
colorectal,
colorectal,
and lung cancer.
and lung. So those are the 5 that we have validated screenings for. Yes, thank you. Next question, Ron.
It seems like you guys have kind of fallen into or found a real gap that I think is really helpful. It's kind of been my experience that the primary care docs have a limited time with their patients, and they often don't go into all of those things about cancer screening. And I presume that's part of your outreach to go to the primary care guys too.
I think what we're trying to do is say, oftentimes patients just say, it's beyond me. It's not beyond you. You've got to take some of your own steps, right, Doc? And some of that is just even do we have the right tools to educate people? Because you're right, physicians are way too busy. Sometimes they may not know the other issues that are going on in terms of your life. But the truth of the matter is that this should raise the overall level of interest, communication, education, and willingness to act on that knowledge in a way that allows people to feel, I'm not out of control when it comes to this issue. I have some influence in my own health journey.
One of those can be a good example is lung cancer. In order to be screened for lung cancer, you have to first admit that you smoke. And a lot of people don't like to admit that, especially to their physician. So, by being able to go on to the platform and look at, what is pack years? How many, have you smoked more than 100 cigarettes? There are things there that then will hopefully trigger people to understand, like, yes, I probably should bring this up. There are things on that we hope from an educational standpoint that they will print off and they will take to their primary care practitioner when they walk in. And that way, nothing against that, we know how busy they are. They're being pushed from their side of the organization, see as many patients as you can, make these, visits smaller and everything that goes with it. We're hoping that people, as they walk in more educated based on that they'll get the treatment that they need.
Great. And George, question?
Well, one other question, I guess, or observation. It's really great to hear you talk about the platform, the digital element, and the younger audience, because cancer is an old age disease, but people need to get screened at middle-aged, and to get them screened at middle-aged, they've got to start hearing about the value of this and understanding it at a young age. So you've got the span of life that you're dealing with.
Yeah, a very good question. And just to clarify, the cervix cancer does start screening at a much younger age, 21. And then the second point, for those who don't know, is that Iowa has one of the highest cancer rates for individuals under the age of 39. Yeah. So not all the screening starts at that point, but we are seeing more and more cancer in younger individuals. But George, you're exactly right that getting older is one of the leading risk factors for developing cancer.
And colorectal, the age for that today?
Yes, so the screening has changed from 50, starting at 50, for someone of average risk. Now, when I say average risk, if you happen to have family members with certain types of cancer, then you may be eligible for screening that starts at a younger age than you'll see in the guidelines. So the guidelines are for people of average risk, and just within the last I think 8 years, we've changed from screening for colorectal cancer starting at 50 to screening started at 45 for average risk. And there's talk that it may actually be lowered to 40 for average risk. Repeating myself, but that if you have a family member with colorectal cancer, you may be eligible to start screening at a younger age than the stated guidelines.
And most people I'm talking to had no idea that had dropped from 50 to 45.
Right.
And that's exactly the type of range and that range that we're looking at bringing up to people so they understand. And that's why it's important. I think it's been a great opportunity just to open the conversation and make this, hey, it's available out there. You can talk about it.
And then one of the things that I'm sure Justin is working on is just last week, there are tweaks to the colorectal cancer screening guidelines.
Yes,
And
so we'll
there's
continue to keep those
incorporation
updated.
of a blood test as part of that.
Yes.
But we don't have time to go into that. We have time, though, for one more question, if we have a question. George, are there any questions coming in from our studio, or from our, okay? We have
One more.
Last question.
Worked in public education like I did for so many years. I just was thinking from a screening standpoint, is there some way that a program like yours could be brought into public education. You know, certainly with the awareness and approval of parents, but just really begin screening young people and educating them on the importance of it and what it is, and the parents as well.
Absolutely. And what more powerful way to have a child go home and ask their parent, right? Or their grandparent if they had been screened, you know, and I don't think that that happens a lot. So introducing it at a young level, that's a great idea.
Great. Well, this has been wonderful. Our guests have been Mike Schreers and Justin Miller from Cancer Screen Iowa. We've been talking about enhancing the cancer screening in Iowa with hope and optimism, because if you choose hope, anything is possible, right, Mike?
Absolutely, Dick, absolutely. We owe it to this state, we owe it to our families, we owe it to the future.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. If you know someone that would benefit by watching this program, good news, it's going to be available on demand beginning tomorrow at the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel and also the Mercy Cancer Center website. I hope you'll join us again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.